just going to come here and hate watch. There's a couple Arsenal fans here and one Valencia fan. So, anyways, welcome to the TikTok. And today we are going to be talking about navigating ADHD waters. And we're going to be taking a deep dive into how ADHD and its symptoms affect our daily lives. So there's me, Tomiwa here, there's Innocent, and there's Clinton. And I am going to allow them to, introduce themselves. I know we have a couple episodes in the past that we've talked about ourselves, but it feels like it's another lifetime ago. So I'll start with me. I'm Tomiwa. I'm a designer, a digital product designer. I do a bunch of things. Primarily, I work as a product designer in a nonprofit that's trying to solve making quality education available to people who live in low internet areas. Innocent.
Hi, I'm Innocent by name and act. I'm an art administrator who sometimes creates, and I'm also in the academia. Yeah. I do have a non-profit also. Because we can talk about non-profit. I do have a non-profit that's focused on solving career sustainability problems for African art practitioners. So that's kind of where most of my interest lies and most of my headaches lie also. Clint.
Hi, my name is Clinton, and I'm a writer and many other things, public relations person, brand strategist, this and that. I do all of that and more. Currently, I just actually started working with a non-profit that does restorative healing. So I'm trying to delve into that kind of, but also I work with 4 brands and, on strategy and stuff like that, everything around that. So yeah, I'm a strategist. I like to think of myself as that. Yeah.
Fantastic. So as you can see, all of us care about humanity enough to devote our time and our energy to working on non-profits for no personal gain.
Yes.
That's a lie. We all like money.
Well.
Okay, no. Let me rephrase. We all need money.
Exactly.
So unfortunately for us, we kind of have to do capitalism. But anyways, back to our discussion. So ADHD. 3 of us, it's not very unique. There's, 120 million of us, roughly. All 3 of us are Nigerian men, right? And we just also so happen to have, I don't think any one of us has, clinical diagnosis in a sense, but based off of symptoms and essentially our lived experiences, attention deficit disorder has affected us in more ways than we can explain or fathom, as the case may be. And essentially, we just want to explore in the context of being Nigerian or being a Nigerian man, understanding who a Nigerian man is. A Nigerian man is a man who provides, is a man who is supposed to be strong, is a man who is supposed to be, gruff when he needs to be gruff and soft when he needs to be soft. And there's so many expectations placed on us by our families, by our loved ones, in terms of being providers, in terms of being, we essentially are, we don't, I'll say something very well. We don't mansplain in a sense because we are expected to know everything, and those expectations, unfortunately, happen to have effects, both good and bad, on us. And in the context of, all 3 of us who are all millennials, who all grew up through the same generation, who all experienced the world changing around us, right? We grew up into cassettes, and now someone literally reached out to me today and was like, do you have a CD player? I'm like, where will I find a CD player? why would you ask me that? Just to show how much, the world has evolved through our lived experiences. It makes sense that we all suffer from some kind of attention deficit disorder, because essentially the world that we're born into is not the world that we live in right now. And as much as on social media, it can be like a bit of a cool term. Oh, I have ADHD, I have ADD, I have it. I think it's very debilitating. It's a very, very serious concern. And I will invite one of us. I want all three of us to explore, talk about lived experiences that we've had. Specific examples, doesn't have to be anything major, right? But that we've had with, attention deficit disorder, and how probably, if you can, how it affects your daily life, how it's affected you in one specific moment, but also how it affects your daily life. So yeah.
So I've never done tests for I don't like to do. I don't believe in self-prescription, right? I always believe in whenever it comes to health, especially when it comes to mental health, you have to tread the line of proper diagnostics and prescription. So for this reason, I've mostly not shied away from those self-tests and diagnoses that are often around for most things. Even those funny quizzes people send, like, oh, I made this, or I did this and I became that cake. I am very, very suspicious of partaking in them, because for a lot of reasons. I don't even totally believe in the Myers-Briggs. I don't believe in the Myers-Briggs for a very different reason. So for that reason, I never really went down the path of, observing whether I had ADHD or not. But remember in 2019, something happened where I was actually coming for a TEDx Yaba meeting. I was going to a TEDx Yaba meeting in Shomolu then. And for those who don't know, myself and Tom, we go way back in TEDx family. We've been doing TEDx since 2012. I don't know for Clinton. I don't know what he was doing then. So in 2019, when I was organizing TEDx Yaba with Mano Ladeboye, there was a day we had a meeting at Ozone Cinema outside Ozone Cinema in Yaba, and I was to take a bike from Shomolu where I was staying I want to take a bike directly to Yaba, and I observed myself stuttering. The thing is, I don't stutter. The only time you might find me stuttering is if I'm like very angry, and I wasn't being angry or anything. I just realized I was having difficulty producing the words, but anyway, I got to the meeting, and then during the meeting, I realized the goal was, long story short, that led to a series of events that led to me going to the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital Yaba, aka Yaba Left, to get checked out, and I was then diagnosed with acute anxiety disorder. Since then, if you ask me now, I would say that was also when I started noticing the signs of attention deficit in myself, because suddenly prior to then I used to thrive in maximizing on minute details. I used to be the person who you go to who can focus on all of the tiny details and everything and make them work out. Now, not so much. Now I find them very debilitating and frustrating, and I really just want to get away from them, amongst other things. And it's become such that it affects the work I do with nonprofits, with other organizations, and wherever I'm working, that I have to, be the person now that gets moved around to focus on the bigger picture kind of things, which I also thrive well in. But I have also now become the kind of person who, from time to time, I lock myself away from the world just to be able to feel the ground beneath my feet and know exactly where I'm standing so I can get back into my focus. And that's the way it has been for me, right? But I still hadn't like taken like a proper test. And I still even at some point didn't start thinking about this being ADHD until when we are having our last conversation, that's when I realized that, what, this might actually be symptoms of ADHD, because in more ways than one that I can't even go to fully now. There were all of these little things that were creeping up in my life, and then I'll match with someone on a dating app, and then we'll talk once, and I'll be like, well, maybe that's not ADHD, maybe just me being an ass. Anyway, but my point
You
is,
literally just did an ADHD thing. You had a conversation in your head, you dismissed your own thoughts, and then you vocalized.
yeah, and
Continue,
that's funny.
continue.
When those things
Speed up.
happen, we just say, "Oh, I had an intrusive thought," and then I push it away. But these are little things, little threads that we often don't pay attention to. And I'm not the first son in my family, right? Thankfully so. I'm not the first child in my family, thankfully so. But we all come from a certain background of having to get things done. Right, we come from a certain background of having to feel a certain weight of responsibility, regardless of where we are and what we're doing at a given moment. And all of this compounds, especially when we're not finding active solutions to the problems that we currently have at the moment. And I think kind of compounds to maximize and to extend whatever symptoms we might have in some of these things. I don't know what's experiences Clinton has had with this. How about you, Clinton?
I have two very distinct experiences that I remember very well because they were very serious. The first was when I was in GS1. So I was a very intelligent student. I mean, I was trying. And so I was in this new school in Ikeja, GS1 anyway, exam one time. And when I was done with the exam, I was so sure that I was going to pass like maybe 60 something over 70. It was a mathematics exam. And so when the results came out, they said that I saw my script and I had like 12 over 70. I said, the teacher, something's wrong with the teacher's head. I didn't even bother looking at the script or going through it. I just said, something's wrong with him. Me, 12. It's not possible. So I went home confidently. I told my mom, something's wrong with the teacher. How can he give me 12? You know me now. Like, ah. And I was like, yeah, what rubbish is that? What happened? I said, I don't know, but I know that I wrote this thing well, and I'm very sure I passed. So she said, okay, tomorrow I'm going to go to school, meet this teacher, and find out what happened. Like, what's the problem? I want to go and complain or something. I said, yeah. So my sister was also in my school at the time. So it was my sister and my mom that went. It was after exam, so I didn't need to go to school. So my mom just had to stay at home. And then my mom came back later. And from the door, she gave me a very serious stare. You know, when Nigerian parents look at you and like,
Just
you're in
know.
trouble. Like, oh, you just know. And my mom is a teacher, as you know, Thomas. So, so I was like, mom, what happened? I was so excited. I wanted to know my real score. And she was like, so you just sent me there to disgrace myself. I said, no, I don't understand. She said, okay, take. This is your script. Open it. I opened it. What do you see? And now I got it now. She said, what was your answer? I didn't write an answer.
Oh my God.
I solved the entire thing and I didn't write an answer. I just put equal to, and I went to the next one. Do you know that's why I did the entire exam?
Oh
I
my
didn't write
God.
one answer.
Oh
I
my
just kept
God.
writing equal to and going to the next one. And so I'll solve it and I'll not write answer. So the man wanted to punish me because my workings were right. And you know how this maths exams then.
Yeah, you just didn't finish it.
I just didn't finish it. So he decided I wasn't going to give me marks for the workings because I did not write the answer. He wanted to show me that I needed to be more careful. Honestly, for the life of me, I don't know what happened. I don't understand. I remembered writing the answers. I also sure I did. But actually, I forgot. In the exam hall, I forgot to write answers. And it was crazy to me. And I kept wondering, like, what happened here? I don't understand. So that was the first instance where I forgot something. Then the second one was I was writing French exam. This was now in GS2. And I was like the best student in French in my class, like by far. And everybody knew it. So during exams, everybody wanted to sit
Tu parles français?
I don't parle français anymore. It's actually because of this story that I actually don't speak French anymore. I actually went to a French school. I went to a French school, like summer school, as they called it. And like I was so interested in French. And my dad loves French. So I was so good at French. I was so sure. Like So we're entering exams, everybody wanted to sit with me, everybody wanted to. They had already planned for me that it's me that would teach everybody. I mean, I didn't like all that disturbance, but I was like, okay, whatever. So we're in the hall, and everybody kept calling me. Like, we're just like 3 minutes into the exam. And because it was French, nobody knew what to write. It's different if it was other subjects where everybody first writes to what they know before they now start trying to find answers to what they don't know. This one, they didn't know anything inside. So they just started calling me as we entered hall. I was like, everybody should calm down. I'll leave me, like, chill. No, how far now? So I got to the point I was frustrated. I just said, you know what? Everybody, I'm just going to tell you people, you tell the others. I'll just tell you so you leave me alone. I wanted them to get out of the hall so I could just write my thing. So I told them, like, oh, this one is this. I taught everybody. And I was like, fantastic. So they all left the hall. I was so happy. I was like, finally. And I still had like 1 hour left. I was like, finally. Me. Yeah, let me kill it. And in that moment, I forgot all the French I've ever known. Everything. I was completely blank. I knew I couldn't write a single, I couldn't remember a thing. And I was blank. I was looking at this paper. I kept trying. And it didn't work. So I started to cry. That guy, but I was crying. And then my sister had finished her own exams and she was around. She was just waiting for me to finish. I was the only one in the hall. And then eventually she just looked at me like, what's wrong with you? I just went to submit like that. I just wrote rubbish. I went to submit. And I got like 10 over 70. Do you know what these people I thought got? 50 and 60. I got 10.
This is why you should not facilitate cheating in the exam.
After that day, if you see me inside exam hall, if you call me, the way I was set for you, I was very aggressive after that because I didn't want that to happen. But there was actually a third incident that just to add, and it was actually when I got a job one time, and they were doing like this orientation for us. They had sent us, it was an oil and gas company. They had sent us everywhere to all departments and all of that. And so we went out to meet the owner just to have a conversation about what we had done and everything. And I was there, someone spoke first. I didn't know I was going to speak next because there was someone between us. But then they called me next and I froze. And I kid you not, I couldn't even remember the names of the people I had just seen outside. People I had been talking to every day. I couldn't remember anyone's name. I couldn't remember anything. Like I just went blank and my head I just got a bit dizzy. And like that forgetfulness, just because I lost focus for a split second and I couldn't remember anything again. Like I went blank. It was very embarrassing. And they had to tell me that don't worry, don't be scared. Like you've already gotten the job. And in my head, I'm shouting, I know. Like this is not nerves. But how do I explain it to you that I'm not nervous or anything? It's just that my head just went blank for a second and I can't remember. Do you know that before that thing was over, I remembered everything back, but it was too late. And they used that thing kind of shaped the perception of me throughout my time there. And it hurts me a lot, I won't lie to you, because I could see clearly that I was being judged based on those lenses of that particular incident. And I mean, I've had other cases, but those were like the 3 major ones where I felt like this thing cost me. And it's just what it is.
So I feel like I should have couched, when I asked for examples, and I should have probably like dimensioned and said, give me a bad example and give me a good example, because I'm sure that there's 1,000 good examples, because ADHD is very very, forgive my language, fucked up, right? So there's the chronic inattention, right? There's the time blindness. The time blindness is insane. God, it's like time just doesn't exist until it does, right?
Yeah.
There's impulsivity, right? You just do things because you want to do them. There's this one is the one I've struggled with the most, I think. Out of sight, out of mind. You just forget things and forget people, right? And I have struggled with this, especially in my romantic relationships. I am not going to delve into it any further than that. But out of sight, out of mindedness, out of sight, out of mind.
Out of mind.
A big thing. So these things are not things you can easily explain because it feels a lot of the struggles with ADHD, unfortunately for non-neurodivergent people, or even many neurodivergent people, but just who maybe don't have it to the degree that we do, or have it in a different tilt, they almost feel like it's just a lack of effort. But it's not a lack of effort. Your brain just doesn't like to do so, right? And I think the only positive, maybe not the only positive, but maybe the biggest positive is the random hyper focus that you get, or hyperactivity that you get, right? You just, I mean, okay, so good example is literally today, I wake up, walk to the kitchen, myself and my wife have a routine where, because I forget to eat, so I told you guys on our last call, I have to send a picture of my food. So sending a picture of my food means that I have to figure out food so that I'm able to send a picture of my food. If not, I'm going to catch a lot of heat, right? This has happened 1,000 times, but it happened today again, just to show how annoying the brain is. I walk into my kitchen, and what happened is I did a mini rearrangement yesterday. I switched out, I got a new refrigerator, I switched out my couch and my rug in my living room. So I moved stuff out of the old fridge and into the new fridge. There was a little bit of a mess, right? And I walked into the kitchen to make breakfast. And this breakfast was just plantain and egg with tea. It wasn't a lot of things, right? And between the time, or rather, okay, the time that I entered the kitchen and when I finally had breakfast, there was a 2-hour period in it. Why? Because I entered the kitchen, oh shit, I have to wash the plates. I have to arrange the plates. I have to wipe the sink. I have to make sure that my slab is arranged. 2 hours gone. And then, oh shit, not had breakfast. Meanwhile, this woman has sent me, how far? Where is my picture? Anyways, that's the hyper focus. It was a good thing because I needed to do all those things and I did them. Just I needed to have breakfast before I did all these things.
Yeah. Right? I have another example of such hyper focus. Or such focus. I don't know if I'll say it's hyper focus because jury is still out on me. Yeah. So I got invited to give a talk as a conference happening in May. And I was supposed to send a couple of things, like a description of what my talk is going to be about to the organization, a couple of things. I got that done yesterday, but I was also supposed to have a call today with the head of the organization to discuss what I was going to be talking about. So I was supposed to have my slides and everything ready. I have known this for days. I've known this for days. Perhaps it's just procrastination, but I couldn't. I mean, I literally opened where I was going to design the slides. I had it open throughout yesterday, staring at it. I know if at that moment you called me like, so what do you want to talk about? I would tell you in detail what I want to talk about, give you the flow. What font do
Analyzing it.
All right. Yeah. But then this morning, I get up 6 a.m. and then I get to my computer and I still can't start. Right. And I know the deadline is right there. Like, so no longer, it's not about like pressing deadline, but I still can't start. But all of a sudden, after moving some things, making some calls on other personal and family related issues, it felt like a cloud opened up in my head. And in 1 hour, I put together a deck of 12 slides.
Yep.
That was done, boom. Waited on that, I had a call with her. She was amazing. I'm like, this is not still the final deck, right? This is just like sequence of the thoughts that I'm going to give you in the talk. But it made sense to me. It flowed. And that just happened immediately. Like that cloud kind of opened up.
Yeah.
That went in smoothly immediately. So that happens. But something I wanted to kind of call back to, which I found a bit interesting, and maybe this is putting the cat ahead of the horse a bit, is Clinton, when you were talking about your experience in school, your first exam experience, I found that very interesting because it also means that there are no mechanisms, or at least when we were growing up, the mechanisms were not there to provide support for such situations. Because why? What was
Not
going
just the
on?
mechanisms. Sorry for cutting you. Just hold your thoughts and you
Mhm.
continue. There were not just the mechanisms for managing, the mechanisms for recognizing.
Recognizing. Exactly. Because I was trying to imagine at that moment, what was going on in the mind of the teacher? Did the teacher think that this kid just wants to frustrate me? Because I remember, wait, Clinton, I remember that the biggest problem the teachers had then was people giving answer without showing their workings. But this is someone that showed the workings, but didn't write answer. The least I would have done as a teacher then would be, come, are you okay? Just, are you okay? Is it just a starting point, right?
He felt like he was helping me by penalizing me.
By penalizing you.
Like as a deterrent, so that next time when I remember that I didn't pass last exam because of this, I'd focus.
So it goes back to my point about people seeing it as a personal failing or as a lack of effort.
As a lack of effort, yeah.
It's a recurring.
This just reminded me of primary school. When I was in primary 2, I moved to a new school, our shared school. And so I was in primary 2, and honestly, I was the slowest boy in my class. I was the slowest. It was so bad. My mom was the teacher in the school, so my teacher would go and meet my mom every day to complain. He has done it again. Slowest, he didn't finish his work. I couldn't finish anything. Everybody's on number 40, I'm on number 3. It was well known that I was a slow boy. So even in exams, when it was time to submit, I'll just be halfway. And they'll say, submit, time's up. And that's that. So I kept coming 5th, 6th. They called me Mr. 5th. I was always 5th or 6th, 5th, 5th, 5th. Like, what is your... They could say that, like, he kind of knows what he's doing, right? But it's not finishing. What's his problem? And it was a thing. But it was one day that changed everything for me. And it was a day when we did something called syllables. There was syllables we did. I remember it very, very well. We did syllables that day. They gave us classwork, 40 questions. And I was the first to finish. Because I was kind of, I think I just snapped that day. And 40 questions, I was first to finish. When I went to submit, my teacher looked at me and said, go back. I said, go back. I finished. She said, no, go back. I showed her that I had finished. Then she looked around to see whether someone else had finished. Maybe I copied the person. But to be honest, if I was copying, based on how slow I was, I couldn't have even finished copying. That's how bad it was. And that was the everything flipped, because she realized that, okay, he did it himself. She marked it. I got 40 over 40. That was the first time she went to my mom and had something positive to say. She was shocked. Like, where did this come from? And you know what now happened after that? I went from the slowest to the fastest. It was I recognized my method.
Yes, that's the key
I recognized
thing. You didn't realize at the time, but
yeah,
you found a framework that you
for ensuring that I was fast.
Yes.
And after that day, even when I wrote WAEC, I was trying to be top 3 to finish in every exam, and I did it. I'm a very stupid person. I was trying to finish top 3 every exam, and I did it. Like every exam, when someone goes to submit, I'll start writing very fast because I want to be number 2 at least. my jam center, I was second fastest to finish, and the first finished in 1 hour, and it came 30 minutes late. So technically, I was the first to finish because that one it did runs, but it just became my thing. Like I found a method that just worked, and I just became like super fast with everything. And even with the forgetfulness that happens now, I remember distinct things. I don't know if that is linked as well, but there are certain things I just remember for no reason. I just remember them. I tell my sister. I remember when we did this.
ADHD gives you super memory, but just for the wrong things. So this thing affects our daily lives.
Daily lives, yeah.
And it's important that I think that, so I would like us to talk about the stigma, but I think especially for the society we grew up in, even though it may not be the society we necessarily interact with on a daily basis, there's not as much acknowledgement as I would like, right, of the effects of ADHD. And we can see it very clearly in the examples that, from Clinton's example about a teacher deciding to punish him for something, that he knew instinctively that was weird. And your story actually reminded me of my experience in university. I went to OAU, fortunately and unfortunately for me. And I remember my first year, all my external courses, I studied computer science with economics. All my external courses, my core science courses, so physics, chemistry, math, I failed all of them. I had Fs. I didn't just have Fs, dreadful Fs. I had 12, 19 Fs, right?
Wow.
And my computer science courses, I aced all of them. I had 89, 90, 70, it was list. I remember my course advisor actually called me into his office and like, I don't understand your results. It doesn't make sense that you're failing
this.
You're
capable of this.
And then he said it would have made sense if I was failing some courses and then I was performing averagely on some courses. And you'd be like, okay, maybe the boy is not, fast, a little slow. But the fact that I'm absolutely acing courses and
contrast.
He said, does it make sense? I said, obviously I didn't understand what was going on. It didn't make sense to me then. Now I know that it was a function of interest. I just hated the courses I was failing. I hated the courses not because of the course content. Sometimes it was because I remember with my chemistry 101, it was in Adjusted. Said knows Adjusted. But the class was I remember the class was at 7 a.m. It was a 2-hour class, 7 to 9. And the class usually would be full by 6 a.m. And I just couldn't be asked, what do you mean I should leave for you home and walk down to Adjusted? That is all the way across OAU. And I should be seated by 6 a.m. If not, I'm not going to get a good seat and I have to struggle at the back. So no, I'm not going to do that. So I failed it. My math 101, well, I've never been good at math. I have math anxiety. That's another thing to talk about. But it was just like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I failed it. And the stuff that I absolutely enjoyed and I absolutely aced it. And I'm going to then dive into a recurring theme across the Nigerian educational system, which is the fact that the Nigerian educational system absolutely hates, and I use this word very deliberately, hates the concept of qualitative reasoning. They don't want you to think. No, they just want you to reproduce. And it just so happens that qualitative reasoning might be the one thing that I think ADHD sufferers tend to excel at, whether you like it or not, whether you're intelligent or not, I'm sorry to say, right? Because of how many internal narratives are going on in your head. Because the reason why you are so distracted from the outside world is that your head just doesn't stop, right? You tend to think and think and think, and that's what happened with Innocent earlier, where he was saying something in the process of saying it. He literally says it. So, and these things have hyper speed. Your neurons are firing at same speed. He has the conversation, he has it back and forth in his head, and then he dismisses it in his head, and then it's the dismissal that comes out.
That
goes without saying.
And then it's like, never mind.
Yeah. So my original point was talking about stigma, but I don't think stigma is the right word because, again, there's not enough cultural appreciation or
Acknowledgement.
acceptance or
Yeah.
acknowledgement, thank you, of what we suffer for
For
there to
there to
be
be a stigma.
stigma. But we feel the repercussions and the after effects, because even though they don't acknowledge what we suffer from, they punish the effects of it, right?
Yeah.
Punish it, in academics or in an educational system. They punish it in the professional workspace. That's why people think of you as quote unquote less, just because you couldn't remember certain things, even though you absolutely fucking excel at other things. They punish it in, in relationships and whatnot. There's so many areas that we see the effect. So I think as much as we are personalizing our experiences, we also need, whoever it is who has the unfortunate, destiny to listen to this, to understand that it's not just you. It's not just you. You're not lazy. You're not putting in, it's not a lack of effort. You're not deficient in any way. It's not like your brain isn't quite as good as everyone else's.
And you're not making excuses.
And you're not making excuses, right? And we're going to get into how, because the flip side of it is that, unfortunately, because the world doesn't operate the way our brains operate, we have to adjust to the world. We're going to get to that, right? So as we're personalizing it, I need whoever it is who is listening to understand that it's not just you. There's millions of us. I'm sure that there's millions of us that are suffering with, in male, female, young, old. I'm sure that there's 70 and 80-year-olds who will stumble on this, who will listen to it and be like, you know what?
This makes a lot of sense.
Ass years, and this is me, So it would be more than anything. I would term it a success if people came away from this call and were like, yeah, I get it, because that's me, and I feel free, because I don't feel like oh, I could have done more. Yes, I mean, there's ways you can innovate around it, but don't beat yourself up because you are what you are. So yeah, that's how I see it in terms of like stigma.
I also wanted to add one other thing, generally about mental health. When I mentioned earlier in the call that I went to Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Yaba. Now, typically in a conversation, not recorded, I'll just say Yaba left, right?
Yeah.
But purpose of the Insta Yaba left, one, because I wanted to fully call the hospital what it is. Secondly, because there's also a particular stigma. Listen, when you tell someone I'm going to Aro or I'm going to Yaba left, you're a madman. You're a mad woman. That is the first thought. And then they can claw back from anything there. Then they can maybe think, oh, maybe you have drug abuse problem, whatever.
Yep.
And it's interesting because these are two of the strongest and probably two of the
extreme cases.
Yeah. And these two institutions have very good facilities to help with neuropsychiatric related issues, mental health related issues. They actually have doctors there who you could literally walk in and speak to. Like I literally just walked in. It was funny whenever, because I had a lot of follow-up visits monthly in their hospital. It wasn't monthly or even bi-weekly. And every time I was going there and I take a bike or I take an Uber and I'm like, yeah, stop. They're like, are you sure it's it's inside the hospital? I'm saying, yes, go inside the hospital is what I'm going to, right? Because it's strange to them that someone who looks lucid, who sounds sane and all of that is going to a neuropsychiatric hospital or going to
But then they see your hair and say, okay, Rasta man. Maybe don't smoke something.
Yeah, they think maybe you don't smoke something. Exactly. Which is funny because I mean, everyone look at me for weed. I don't know where they think I manufacture it. All right. Anyway, so I just wanted to quickly add that we also need to remove stigma when it comes to getting help.
That's a broader point that I'm hoping that we're able to explore on later calls. The destigmatization of mental health struggles. I'm not even going to use the word disorders. I mean, I just used it. Mental health struggle. It's something that we absolutely need to talk about and see. I mean, we can trigger a cultural shift, of course. I mean, I'll be giving ourselves too much credit, but it would be helpful,
Maybe we should give ourselves credit.
it would be helpful.
Which network? MTN or Glo?
It would be helpful. So I think I want to round off this conversation, and before I get into rounding off things, we've talked about problems, we've talked about good and bad things, we've talked about examples of how ADHD has affected us in our daily lives. And I want to touch on very briefly, very, very briefly. I don't want to say solutions, but I'll say frameworks, right? So frameworks that help. So if anything, any of the things that we've said about the last, 40 minutes or thereabout, matches up to stuff that you've experienced, in your life. So I'm assuming that someone is listening to this, right? It's very imperative and it's very important that you don't just sit on your hands and say, "Oh, that's the way I am." No. At the end of the day, just like
That
you
was
said earlier,
hilarious.
you need money in this life, right? And to make money, you need, to work. And to work efficiently, you kind of need to conform to the capitalist system that runs this world, unfortunately for all of us. So frameworks are extremely important, right? To ensure that you are able to, one, compensate for how your ADHD may debilitate you, right? And two, you're able to optimize the great stuff ADHD affords you, right? And I'm going to make an example that many people might not put to ADHD, but I think is a factor or one way that it plays in our daily lives. And I'm going to go all the way back to university. So I remember in my third year in UAU, right? Was it my third or my fourth year? I think it was my fourth year. I'm not sure, third or fourth year. Was a technical drawing course. And in the exam, I'm going to admit to cheating in the exam, by the way. So everyone.
I will never ever admit to that on record.
You see how you could get started.
Well, technically, I guess I cheated, but it was, again, like I said, my brain helped me out. So it was a technical drawing exam, and we were asked to reproduce the image of a very complex circuit. So they give you a question paper, a bunch of questions on it. And this particular question has the image of a very complex circuit, like a lot of, complex, right? And then they give you a technical drawing paper. So it's a giant sheet of paper, and they ask you to reproduce on that sheet. Now, here's the tricky part. My ADHD forces me or makes me process things very fast, sometimes too fast. And a good example of that happened earlier today, where I saw something on Twitter. My wife sent it to me. It was a question sheet in an exam, and there were like 10 questions. And she sent it to me. Someone had answered all the questions. And then as I was reading it, I was answering the questions. And apparently question 8 is don't answer any of the questions. Just write your name and submit. And my reply was like, oh my God. And the catch was, you have to answer the questions on the question sheet. So if you start before the entire thing, you have failed. Right? So I was like, oh my God, I'm going to fail this exam 9 times out of 10, guaranteed. Anyways, back to my initial example. Technical drawing course.
Sorry. Before you go on, I would pass that exam because you know how that works for me. I freeze and I can't start, and I read every question over and over again. I go to the end, and I would have got that. So you can go on.
So me, I know that I won't know everything. Cosini, I'm not going to know everything. So I start answering quickly. Again, to avoid Clinton's example, before I forget, let me just... Anyways, technical drawing exam, complex circuits, giant sheets. They ask us to reproduce. But here's the catch. The question then says reproduce at any scale you deem appropriate, and then append that scale, right? So, literally, I don't have to think about it, right? I'm going to do a one-to-one scale. So I take my drawing sheet is quite translucent. I put it on top of the question sheet and I trace this super complex circuit and I'm done with that question in 5 minutes. I'm done with it so fast and so efficiently that I'm able to help 3 other people answer their questions. I'm like, don't worry. And I just put one scale. That was it. That was it. I scored an 85 or 86A in that exam. There were 2 other questions. It was that question because that was the question I also carried the highest marks. People spent an hour plus on that question. I finished it in 5 minutes and I helped 3 other people to do it. I was feeling super generous.
Stop cheating. Both of you have just admitted to cheating on this call. You will never
What do you mean, both?
Long story short,
You will never
I feel like it's not everybody that will make that connection. It sounds very simple, but not everybody will make that connection because it's very intuitive. And I'm sure that, I give credit to the examiner for saying, oh yeah, 1-to-1, it makes sense. They did tell us to use any skill we want and then just append the skill. So I trace it, I put my 1-to-1 skill, magnification times 1. I sign my name, boom.
And they probably wrote somewhere on top of the question paper, read instructions carefully before you answer.
It probably did. And in this one scenario, I did not think it. It was right there. I solved it. Anyways, frameworks, right? One of my biggest frameworks is that, especially to solve for the out-of-mindedness and the forgetfulness, is that I routinize everything. Everything has to be in a routine. And modern technology helps us a lot, right? You have reminders on your phone. You have, calendars that you can attach things to. Just create routines as much as possible. And the easiest way to create routines is to find things that are already habits for you and tie them to those habits. Tie your routines to the habits. So what is a habit that everybody has? Everybody eats. Whether I eat 1 time daily or eat 2 times or eat 3 times daily, you eat every day, right? For the most part, at least, most people do. So if there's something that you're already struggling with, right, tie it to your meal times. So even if your meal times are inconsistent, right, at the very worst, you know that when you're hungry, you have to find food and you have to eat. So if it's calling your wife or your girlfriend or your mother that you struggle with for the most part, just tie it, make a meeting and agree to yourself, write it down if possible. Okay, every time I am going to eat lunch, for example, I will call my mother, right? Whether you do it before or after. Once you do that, I guarantee you that every single time going forward, every time the thought of having lunch comes, the follow-up thoughts, that same thing that you struggle with your entire life or for your entire week or for your entire month will follow. Now, you might not execute on it every time, but it just means that you have baked a routine onto a habit that you don't already have to think about because your brain has already solved that problem. Your brain likes the blood that comes to it. So it knows that you have to eat, right? So your brain is very selfish in that sense. So just tie something that you need to something that your brain needs. You almost have to remove yourself and start thinking of your brain as an independent entity and respect it, right? But also trick it, right? So frameworks like using reminders, frameworks like I said, tying routines to habits, frameworks like using visual cues. Visual cues are very important for me. I'm on this call and I'm taking notes. Nobody's teaching me anything, but I'm still taking notes because I need visual cues. I can't help it. So, so that's it for me. So yeah, let's just talk about frameworks. Whether in Clinton's case, for example, it talks about how you unwittingly learned how to learn, right?
Yeah.
For me, I learned by problem solving. I don't learn by example. I don't learn by demonstration, right? Generally, I don't learn by instruction. Most people don't learn by instruction. Generally, it's like the weakest way to impart knowledge. But I learn by problem solving. So I will either consume something, I read about it, or watch a video on YouTube about it. Then I have to go and solve it myself, either while interacting with that source of knowledge or on my own. Once I do it that one time, I'll be able to do it continuously, and then I'll even add my own spin to it. So finding these frameworks are extremely important. So yeah, please get shared.
I teach by storytelling.
Oh, okay.
Just saying, because you've talked about instruction now. For the it's not going to all go well for me to be here and not defend the the instruction section of the word. But
I mean,
that's
but
why
instruction is different from storytelling.
it's different. That's the thing. That is why I rather teach by storytelling rather than defining terms to you. I will define them to you, but rather than just defining terms to you, I tell you a story about it. Exactly, tie to a story.
It's more memorable.
Exactly. I feel like it stays more. But yeah, so I'll also say that for me, so what I have just have one framework to offer, which is accountability partners. The idea of accountability partners work well. Like, listen, we talk from time to time, we keep ourselves honest. And also I have another group of friends who I speak with. We call ourselves life committee. We're each other's life committee, right? And we speak once a month, just an evening of we just sit down and this person like, oh, listen, this is what has been going on with me this month. And then we talk about it. But then also aside from those, we make our times to actually help each other. If someone like, and imagine we have some emergency sessions or we have a group chat where like this is going on, this is going on, right? Interventions. So having accountability partners in those ways and being open, it's very, I don't have a problem with you keeping some things secret about yourself, generally speaking, but not to your accountability partner.
Yeah.
And especially for those of us who are single, we should definitely have accountability partners. No, I know what I'm saying.
What do you mean by that?
No, the reason I'm saying this is if you're in a relationship, especially like a serious relationship, be it marriage or a long-term relationship, then you should be able to, if you're unable to have an accountability partner, generally, you should be able to have your spouse be your accountability partner. Right, just like the way you have to send picture of your food to your wife, it's the same way you need to have some, right? So
I was going to touch on that. Yes,
if you are,
sense, yes, she's my
exactly.
number one.
So
Partner,
if you are hopelessly single like Clinton, or you are,
I have hope. I have hope. I'll have you know I have 45 women.
Listen,
45.
Listen, if you are hopelessly single like Clinton, or you are strategically single like me, then you need to find other ways to build accountability partners, and that's what I would offer in that sense.
So I just remembered how I used to learn in secondary school, and it's the funniest thing ever. So if I'm watching the teacher and I'm listening to the teacher, I'm not learning anything. And I used to be good at this thing. I could read for an exam, a day to exam. If you make me read the entire term, I'd fail. I would not remember a thing. But if I don't read the entire term, night before exam, you see me and my sister will exchange books. We will now set questions for ourselves and give ourselves like 30 minutes to read. Then I'll start answering. That was what I used to do before exams. But you
Clinton,
know why
I was the opposite of that, Clinton. My own is if I attend the lecture, that's it. I don't need to read.
That's where I'm coming. That's actually where I'm coming to.
That's me too.
I repeat it in my head.
That's actually where I'm coming to. That's the reason why I could pass exams, a day to exam. People used to
if you attend and you enjoy the lecture, actually, add that.
I used to make sure
the lecturer just droning to themselves.
I'll tell you how I used to enjoy it. So people used to think that after school, I'll go home, put my leg inside water in the middle of the night and be reading. That's what they said I was doing. That I'll come and deceive everybody and do as if I'm playing. But in reality, I was actually playing the entire term. But the way I learned was, I had a best friend, Tony. Tony and I in class, we used to play table soccer under the desk. As I'm playing that table soccer, the thing the teacher is saying just starts getting sweet. It might be the most mundane thing.
But you're associating, that's association.
Right.
You're associating something with joy with something that you need.
Exactly. So what I'll do is I'm enjoying it. Everything the teacher is saying is entering my head. If I'm not playing table soccer, I mean, there was one day they caught us because we were laughing. I played one mad-ass free kick or something. And me and my guy now looked at ourselves like, mad. Teacher now saw us. And this was a teacher that everybody had been mocking. So she told us to stand up. She was new. Stand up, a Greek teacher. Why are you laughing? She thought we were laughing at her. But we couldn't tell her why we were laughing because that's just worse. Like, we're laughing because of table soccer. You playing table soccer that they banned. So we just accepted that we were laughing at her and accepted that punishment. But every class I was, if I wasn't playing table soccer, I was drawing a face. I used to like drawing faces.
Yes.
I have to do something interesting. And as they are talking, it's making sense and it's just entering my head. In fact, entering my subconscious sometimes. And I'm having fun with it. I'm always doing some interesting activity. Also, this is why I tweet a lot. Because tweeting was actually my activity. Back then when I had a lot of energy, when I used to argue on Twitter, people used to look at me like, this guy has to be jobless. Because why are you arguing on Twitter for 6 hours? Every minute, arguing in the middle of the day. Like, don't you have something to do with your life? Actually, I was working while arguing. The argument was making the work not be boring and not allowing me to zone out of what I was doing. I'd argue. I enjoyed football arguments. What do you mean this person is this thing? I'm typing that. Next thing, I'm back in my work and I'm flowing. Then I come back. You did crazy nonsense. I come back, and I'm bantering, I'm coming back, I'm bantering, I'm coming back. And it's allowing me to actually be functional. The way I used to read for exams in uni, I'll tweet for 30 minutes, read for 5 minutes. Tweet for 30 minutes or watch something, or like I'll entertain myself for longer than I would read. But see, after entertaining myself, those 5 minutes will feel like 1 hour because I'm just able to focus and enjoy it. Like, it's like I create a time allocation for the reading I want to do. So those 30 minutes now, they will last me 5 minutes, but I will milk those 5 minutes. The adrenaline from the excitement, I'll use it and read and just get it.
Yeah.
And when thing expires, I'll just stop because I know that nothing is entering my head again. I'll go back. And so I started to do things like that, or just sit down and so if I want to enjoy something someone is saying. So as you were talking, I was actually doing something and I was enjoying the gist. I was pressing something and I was just looking at, like, I was fidgeting, but I was enjoying the gist of it. Like, the gist was sweet. Like, and that's kind of, and in fact, that's what reminded me that that's what I used to do when I was in secondary school. Like, the gist of it. You could be talking about the moon, a very random story about the moon. And it's just exciting to me because I'm associating it with some entertainment. And that's how me I've found to like deal with that. Just find entertainment, find something that you can play side by side that excites you enough that you can go back and use that, just milk it, leverage the excitement that you have gotten from it. And this is also why I do deadline stuff. Like, I have a deadline by 10 p.m.
I purposely did not touch on that, but yeah, let's not get into that.
Deadline by 10 p.m. 3 o'clock, I don't know what I want to write. 4 o'clock. So I just leave everything alone. And I actually go and enjoy my life. It's when the pressure and the anxiety
when it hooks you
is heightened. Yeah. That's actually when the inspiration comes. And then I'm like, I'm never doing this again. Just like you say, I'm never drinking again. Next time, trust me, I'll be there. I'll have a whole week. When I was writing an autobiography for someone, my first ever, 2020, I wrote that I was supposed to get 5,000 words to her every week. Deadline was Saturday night, midnight. I'd have the entire week to write my 5,000 words. It was always on Saturday by 6 p.m. And I'd be like, hey, I've not written this thing. And then I'll now start. And there's a way I'll milk it. I'll reach 5,000 words. And I've now made it like real story out of it. And every time I get away with it, I'm going to do it again, for sure. And that's the problem of getting away with stuff.
So we should stop making you get away with it.
I'm sorry, but I will always get away with it.
Your brain is bailing you out, basically. That's it.
It is.
But it's getting you,
I'm not sure that's a good way
in the problem in the first place. So yeah.
Is that a good way to live? That's not a good way to live.
It's not.
Because this anxiety might kill me.
It's not. Essentially, you know that I'll just say, and just so that we round off on this note, ADHD is not something you can necessarily, I don't know. You can't cure it. It's not a disease in that sense. It just is a way. It's just a way you are wired. Your brain is wired, right? And it just so happens that the way your brain is wired doesn't quite match up to the world that you live in and the things that are expected of you. So, essentially, what you need to do or not do is, as long as you need the world, find ways to adjust to the world while optimizing your brain gets the most out of the world. And finding ways to use, the fact that you have the capacity to do 1,000 things and then be, really good at them, right? So finding ways to extract the value, from that capacity, but at the same time, understanding that you can't live like that. You just can't live like that. So finding ways to ensure that you're optimizing to, I really don't like the fact that I keep using the word conform, because it's the only word that comes to mind, but conform to essentially what the world needs, is extremely key. And I feel like I'm sure we'll have this conversation again and again over time, going into more detail or just exploring more themes around it. But this has been a very interesting conversation. It has been an interesting conversation. And I feel like, this is a good time to round things up. And then, I don't know, what if there's anything you want to add or just close up on, please share. And then
my last words for people is, please don't partake in exam malpractice.
Yes. Don't do this.
Don't do
because
it.
one person partook in exam malpractice and forgot all his answers.
Don't do such. Thank you. God bless.
No, they were disturbing me. Like, I did not want to. I had no choice.
Yeah. I did not want to commit the crime, but I was bullied into committing the crime. My God,
it was bullying now.
You
They were allowing me right. They were threatening me. They said they would beat me outside. I had to answer. It's not.
Okay. So this has been an amazing conversation, and we're hoping to do this a lot more frequently. That should be fun, considering that we all three of us have ADHD. So if we don't put out an episode, over any 2-week period, please, guys, just be our accountability partners. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and see you guys whenever I see you guys.
I'm on Valencia.
I'm Mount Valencia. Hey, I'm a Valencia fan. What are you saying?